In a few minutes, I'll be boarding my direct flight from Miami to Lisbon. And I got a middle seat for the next 8.5 hours.
So my plane arrived in the Lisbon airport around 5 o'clock in the morning. I got on the metro once it opened up, rode into the downtown area to get to my hotel, and it turns out that it was closed and doesn't allow me to check in until 2 o'clock. So I had many hours to kill. Well, now I still have about 3 hours walking around with my suitcase, and I'm on the Plaza de Comercio. Boy, it's been a long day, to say the least. I think these Airbnbs are posture as actual hostels, and they are not. Anyway, trying to make the most of it.
This plaza is one of the largest in Portugal and once was the site of a royal residence, but that was destroyed in the great earthquake of 1755. Okay, I'm not the only one hanging out with a suitcase. To prevent these sand sculptures from disintegrating, the artist was constantly going around and misting them with water. Later, after settling into the hotel, I went back out on the street and noticed streams of people entering a building nearby and going through the lobby and into an elevator. So I just decided to check it out and I followed them. Emerging from the elevator, I found myself in the elevated neighborhood of the Alfama district. From here, another elevator took me up even higher into the heart of Alfama. The Lisbon Cathedral sits on a site that was once a mosque until the Moors were expelled from Portugal. The district of Alfama dates back to the 6th century when it was occupied by the Visigoths. Subsequently, it was occupied by the Moors, and then after that it became a neighborhood for mariners and fishermen. There has been a recent revival of the kiosks of Lisbon, with many of the old ones from the 1800s being restored. The Romanesque facade of the cathedral was remodeled during the Salazar years, and with its twin castle-like crenellated towers proclaims itself a fortress of God. The canned fish in this store come in many colorful packages and make good souvenirs. Back down in the Baixa district on the Plaza de Comercio, I caught the sunset over the Tejo River after a long, long day.
It all just sounds too young, too dumb to realize that I should have bought you flowers and held your hand. Should have given you all my hours.
Well, it's 11 o'clock Tuesday morning, and I finally got my rest, even though my room is by far and away the worst room I have had in my life, except for a flop house when I was a teenager where I stayed in the Greenwich Hotel in Greenwich Village in the 1960s. But let me show you this room. It's on the top floor. It's up about 5 flights of stairs, and I keep banging my head on the ceiling because the roof is right above me. There's the sink, and there's the bathroom. There's the holder for the shower doesn't work. You have to hold it with one hand for the spout thing. The water leaks on the floor. And after the toilet almost overflowed, the manager had to come in and plunge it out and warn me that the toilet paper had to go into the trash bin and not into the toilet. And there's no soap, shampoo, anything supplied like that. And we do have I guess a little sitting area there, which I haven't used. That opens up to a courtyard. The most negative part of this apartment is that at the threshold of the door is an immediate steep descent of the stairs going into the apartment. I'm always afraid I might open the door and forget and stumble down the stairs. All right, let's get the day started and get the hell out of here. I discovered this wonderful supermarket near where I'm staying, and they have an amazing counter where you can order a whole meal, which I just had for a late breakfast. The Pingo Doce supermarket chain is one of the largest in Portugal with around 500 stores. Now, from the supermarket, there's a line to a second elevator that takes us higher up to visit the castle in the Alfama neighborhood where we are. Coming off of that elevator, we have a nice view here.
Just be outside talking about the times, okay? Let's go. But you guys should try all the pastéis they're not around, being really honest. Every time that my family and my friends they come over, I take them to
Ah bah oui.
Yellow shirt. Yes. She was with me with the fox. I just saw her.
Fortunately, we're here in the beginning of October, so probably there are not as many tourists as there would be in the summertime.
We'll build a monument to all the Jesus protecting the city. Yes, 20-meter statues of them.
Walking up to the castle gate. Can you believe these big buses go down these small cobbled streets? And this is a gate into the castle area. Well, I think I might just skip going into the castle. There's a very long line to the ticket office. Well, next to the castle is this old neighborhood that was originally within the gates of the castle. And I just wander around the streets of this neighborhood within the castle gates. Well, I actually meant the castle walls, not so much the gates. And you can see the original old little receptacles for rods that would allow one to hang their clothes out to dry. Now it's just a regular clothesline. People were shorter back then, and you can see that from the doors here. Look how low they are. There's a clothesline with that support.
The Church of Santa Cruz of the castle lies just inside the castle walls. The building is from the 18th century, and it sits on the site where the original temple was from the 12th century, which in turn was on a site where a mosque once stood during the Moorish occupation. These peacocks are descendants of birds brought back as trophies to Portugal during the great voyages of the 16th century.
That'd be a difficult door to go through. Perfect weather today. It's about 72 degrees and slightly breezy. We're still in this castle town within the walls of the old town next to the castle. And here is the namesake of the castle, St. George, often portrayed as a dragon slayer who helped defeat the Moors.
Miss Can is another shop specializing in canned sardines, mackerel, or cod in very colorful packages.
Here is another Miradoros viewpoint. And here are some beautiful tiles. And this picture depicts the reconquest of Lisbon in 1147 from the Moors. We see Martin Moniz sacrificing his life to keep the door open so his comrades can get in. And we see the Moor here with his curved sword, realizing that they are doomed.
Questo è l'Americo? Vabbè, non ce l'ho niente portato ancora per quello. No, no, volevo dare perché...
And these tiles, also on the back of the church, shows the Plaza de Comercio before the 1755 earthquake, when a royal palace was actually there. And here's a view of the Alfama neighborhood down there, which used to end at the river, but then that whole area next to the water was reclaimed to accommodate the growing cruise ship industry. So I was accosted by a guy who said he was from Senegal and put these bracelets on my wrist and then wanted some money to support his children. No lack of tourists here on the beginning of October.
Did you knew that we were dependent on Spain and we were part of Spain for 60 years? Did you knew that? This is the first time of our history. We don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, forget about it.
Right? So, thank you very much.
San Vicente.
Next to the public lavatories is this mural illustrating the history of Lisbon.
Did you see somebody inside?
No, I've been here. I just want to wait someone to take a picture of me. I didn't even notice that's the restaurant.
There's a massive wall.
This wall, over 1,000 years old, once marked the boundary of the Moorish city.
This square, the Largo de San Miguel, can be considered the heart of the Alfama district. The balconies were limited to 1.5 hands in width. And the area is unfortunately seeing gentrification as old tenants get evicted and investors buy up the property for short-term rentals. Museum of Fado. The hilly streets of the Alfama are child's play compared to all the stairs I have to go up to get to my room in this Airbnb or whatever the hell it is. And so back at my favorite supermarket for a late lunch. This is the Church of St. Nicholas, and notice the green tiles facing the commercial street post the earthquake. Let's go up the Rue de Plata. Elevator of San Justo. And ahead is the Fig Tree Square, Positive Figata. And there is that statue, and it says João I, Cidade de Lisbon, City of Lisbon, 1971. I think I am a little bit boring. There's the statue of this, and there's the house of that. I just don't have the spontaneous banter and character of a bald and bankrupt. Like, check it out, check it out, check out the blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what it is. It is what it is, right? I can only be myself, and I'm sorry if I'm a little bit boring.
Just
This famous pastry shop has been here since 1829, it says. Proper clothing. Another shot of that place. Again, it is beautiful weather right now. And apparently this renovated building behind me was purchased by the tennis star Rafael Nadal for $62 million. And it now has swanky stores in it instead of tenants. This shop specializes in classic salted codfish. It says since 1890. I guess it lasts for about a year when it's preserved, and then you just add water to it and it's good to go, I think. The Church of São Miguel behind me was a center of the Inquisition in the 1600s. Was rebuilt, or at least the interior was rebuilt after the earthquake of 1755. And then there was a raging fire in 1959. And the church didn't reopen until the 1990s, and now is apparently very active. I guess all these columns were reconstructed after they were toppled by an earthquake in 1755. And the soot on the walls you see there is from the fire of 1959.
This chapel depicts Our Lady of Fatima, that is the Virgin Mary, and two children, and is memorializing an event, a series of events that occurred in 1917 in the town of Fatima, Portugal. 3 shepherd girls claim to have seen the Virgin Mary appear and give them 3 messages. After intense interrogation and even imprisonment, eventually the story was accepted and the Vatican recognized the Virgin of Fatima as legitimate. 2 of the children died a year later from the Spanish flu and were eventually beatified by the Pope. The 3rd one was still alive at the time this chapel was built. Thus we see only the 2 beatified children standing in heaven next to the Virgin Mary.
And this looks like it says, in memory of the thousands of Jewish victims of intolerance and religious fanaticism assassinated in the massacre initiated on April 19, 1506 in this square. This square was a place for as a slave. It was a slave market in the 16th century, and today it's a hangout for a lot of Africans from former Portuguese colonies like Angola, Mozambique, and Portuguese Guinea. And over there is the oldest Ginja bar in Lisbon. There's a long line for that wild and sour cherry drink. Ginja. No, that's not a long line. That's Ginja, wild cherry berry, which I will try to have not here but later on. 2,000 years ago, this large oval area was the site of Roman chariot races. Now it's the site where cars continually circle, and it's the very center of the city of Lisbon, the Rocio. And the stones evoke a pattern of waves in honor of the great explorers on the oceans. And after the earthquake, the palace here that was a center for the Inquisition was demolished and the National Theater was constructed. Well, my battery of the camera is dying, so I guess I need to go back to the hotel and get it recharged. It's not that far. Oh, well, here's the Rua Augusta, looking out toward the sea there, and the commercial square. Well, it's still early, so a lot of the people are yet to come out on the streets, I guess, but certainly not a desolate place. And I'm walking down the Rua Augusta to go back to the hotel for a few minutes. And that's where we are. Elevator signs. Houston.
Ignoro.
Quando fazem o concerto da gente em Viena, normalmente
Not the place to come if you want solitude. And so it's back on the streets after a bite to eat, and up to the Rocio and beyond. It really is an optical illusion. Although the stones are absolutely flat, they look like they're undulating in height. Damn. Excuse me. Everywhere there are people teeming like ants.
really interesting documentary.
And obeying their instincts regardless of whether they understand the molecular processes that led to their existence or not. Guess this guy had some too much to drink or something. Oh well, not going to wait for this.
For the people dining right across the street, he is a party pooper.
It's not exactly a private place he chose.
I'm Carolina. I'm half French and half Portuguese, and I work from 9 to 5 at a company and from 6 to midnight here to buy a house in the future.
And do you think you will accomplish that? Do you think you'll
I
be
will,
successful?
because I believe that I accomplish everything that I want in life.
Well, I really enjoy talking with you.
Me too.
You're absolutely right. Everything is changing so fast.
True.
That all the historical monuments are nothing but a historical
Yes.
textbook empty shell, as the demographics are just changing out of recognition.
True.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a statue of a fado performance. And here on the Plaza de Restauradores is an interesting monument or statue of two laborers who are honoring the generations of tile or stone cutters who laid these stones all over the city. And here they are creating a symbol of Portugal, a ship with two ravens honoring Saint Vincent. I guess that's what you tamp down the stones with. All right, let's continue. It's getting late and I'm tired, so I'm going to head back to the hotel and call it a night. Okay, on this kind of drizzly Wednesday morning, I've arrived at the São Carlos Opera House in Lisbon. Let's see if I can go inside. Well, it looks like the box office opens in about a half an hour, so I'm going to continue on and try to come back later. Let's go see this famous Abrazoleira coffee shop, which is about 100 years old. And this statue must be of Fernando Pessoa, who was a famous poet, writer who hung out here. Fernando Pessoa.
Hola Marinetti, nomi diversi, reali o immaginari li ha creati.
Well, this Chiado Square is clearly a focal point of tourism. There's the metro stop. Praça Luís Camões, however you pronounce it, Luís de Camões. It's a busy day. And that is a historic looking kiosk. Although he has a sword in his hand, this was Portugal's most famous poet who wrote an epic poem in the 1500s about the voyages of Vasco da Gama. Closer, farther away.
closer?
Water and
Just walking along here in the Chiado district, it's just an amazing density of little shops and cafes and, as you see, lanes leading up and down to this tiny place. Looks like we have a viewpoint here. There's the statue of the Cristo Rey, Christ the King, across the river. We're here at the Catalina viewpoint, overlooking the harbor. The Vasco da Gama Bridge.
This statue was unveiled here in 1927 and depicts the mythological monster Adamastor, the spirit of the Cape of Good Hope. The small figure is Vasco da Gama, the leader of the expedition into the treacherous waters. Da Gama confronts Adamastor and asks, "Who are you?" He responds by saying that he embodies the vast promontory that the Portuguese call the Cape of Storms, that is, the Cape of Good Hope. But he is so impressed by Da Gama's heroism that he calms the sea and allows the expedition to pass the cape. This story comes from the Lusiads, the epic poem by Louis de Camões, which he wrote in the 1500s, describing Vasco da Gama's discovery of the passage to India. It is considered the greatest work of Portuguese literature. The Monte Garia is the place to go in Chiado for a pastel de nata or custard pie.
All right, I'm going to get on the metro and go north.
This metro station takes us from the high level of the Chiado district down to the low level of the Baixo district of Lisbon. It's one of the most important transfer stations and also one of the most crowded. It opened in 1998.
It's on and on. I went through the department store there, the El Corte Inglés, after coming out of the San Sebastián metro stop, and I'm heading to the Eduardo VI Park.
Actually, it's Eduardo VII Park.
And next to the park here is a luxurious looking condo complex.
I am excited walking here now because 49 years ago I was in Lisbon as a young man, and a few images have remained in my memory all these years, and I am making a pilgrimage to a few of those sites from which I've never forgotten those images.
So I finally arrived at this point in the park where I was 49 years ago in July of 1975. And one of the few images that remain in my memory from all these years was this long, slanting park. And I took a slide of it in 1975, which I still have. And I've come back to this point to connect to that memory and see whether much has changed.
This is the slide that I took 49 years ago.
And here it is. It really did stick in my mind.
Here it is again, 49 years ago. A little more vegetation on the borders. The park is situated on one of the highest hills of the city and offers a wonderful view down through the Marquês de Pombal Square and all the way down the Avenida de Liberdade. And in the distance, the Tejo River.
I doubt any of this stuff was here before.
And indeed, it was not there in those days. In fact, it was inaugurated in 1997, and it commemorates the Carnation Revolution, which occurred April 25th, 1974. This was the event wherein the military had a coup and overthrew the regime which had dominated Portugal with authoritarian rule for 48 years. Apparently, it represents a ruined column and symbolizes the restoration of order after chaos, but it created a lot of controversy. A lot of people saw something else when they looked at it.
And so between the park that I just left and the Avenida de Liberdade, the Liberty Avenue, stands a statue to the Marquês de Pombal. This busy intersection.
At the top of the pedestal stands a bronze statue of the Marquis de Pombal. He gazes toward the Baixa district, which was destroyed by the earthquake of 1755 and which he helped to rebuild. The sculptures at the base of the pedestal represent institutions that the Marquis reformed, such as agriculture, industry, politics, education. This monument was inaugurated in 1934 during the times when the Portuguese Republic was glorifying its national heroes and events.
And I'm going to say goodbye to that park, which I saw 49 years ago. It's a misty, sort of drizzling day here as I'm walking down the Avenida de Liberdade. This long, stately street full of high-end restaurants and hotels. Well, that tram is full, so I have to wait for the next one. So I boarded the Gloria Funicula, which will take us up to the Bairro Alto, the high area of the city. This is Instagram City here. There's the cathedral from up here in the Bairro Alto area. We have this beautiful view.
Columbus was zeg maar Portugees, maar die is volgens mij als voor de Italianen of zo is die
The castle of St. George up there.
Ja, dat is hij was. Nee, hij kwam maar niet uit Italië.
Sweeping up to the north, you see the modern architecture of the new city. and the park there in the distance where I just walked from. Here at this park where I got off of the Gloria elevator is this monument to Lisbon's first journalist or publisher of a newspaper in Lisbon in the 1800s, and a barefoot newspaper delivery boy. This area was popular with writers and poets, journalists, and whatnot. Well, this quaint neighborhood in the Bairro Alto, that is high neighborhood, was designed in the 1500s when Portugal was a big maritime power, and it was built to house the shipyard workers. Today it is apparently quite lively with nightlife late in the evening, which I probably am not going to sample. And we have come to the Largo Trinidade Moelho, and you see this statue of a man selling lottery tickets. And apparently if you rub the ticket, which it looks like it's been rubbed 1,000,000 times, it brings you good luck for the lottery tickets that you may have purchased at either of these two kiosks. But I don't plan to buy a ticket. Facing the square is the Church of São Roque, one of the first Jesuit churches in the world. The chapels in this church are incredibly ornate, and the highlight is this one, the Chapel of St. John the Baptist. It was actually constructed and assembled in Rome and was the product of hundreds of artists and craftsmen. It was commissioned by King John V of Portugal and was considered the most expensive chapel in Europe. It was funded from the gold and other wealth that flowed to Portugal from Brazil. After the Pope said Mass in the completed chapel, it was dismantled and shipped with 3 ships to Lisbon, where it was reassembled here. The central panel featuring the baptism of Christ and the 2 side panels are mosaics, but they were originally paintings and they were converted into mosaics. The tesserae of the mosaic are very tiny. In the beard of St. John, they're about 2 millimeters. Unlike an actual painting, the mosaics can withstand the candle smoke and incense. The floor is also a mosaic featuring the armillary sphere, a symbol of Portugal. The vertical marble strips of the columns required precise matching of texture and also precise cutting of the lines. It so happens that I was lucky while I was standing there to be in earshot of a guide giving a personalized tour to a small group of people, in which he explained the miraculous details that went into the creation of this chapel. It made me appreciate the value of having a good guide to explain the complexity and beauty of the artwork in this church. In this chapel, below the altar, is a glass case containing a 19th century sculpture of Our Lady of the Happy Death. At the bottom of the altar is a painting of Our Lady of Pain, and then above that is a wood sculpture of the Pietà, and above that is the crucifixion surrounded by a lace of angels. Here we see the chancel and the altar with many carved wood statues. The wood ceiling is perfectly flat, but is painted to give the illusion of a barrel vault. Well, the chapels inside that church, that Jesuit church, were utterly stunning. The work involved in the 1500s. Not much to admire from the outside, but like I said, the inside was amazing. The Cervejaria da Trindade, or Trinity Brewery, is the oldest and most beautiful brewery in Portugal. Once upon a time, the place was a convent, and this main room with its beautiful 19th century tiles was the dining hall for the monks. But after the monastic orders were abolished in 1834, the place converted to a brewery. Next door to that beer garden is another collection of little eateries. The restaurant's not open yet. Pizzerias and everything. The Portuguese guitar is a 12-stringed instrument and was originally known as the Lisbon guitar or the fado guitar. This music shop is located right off the Largo do Carmo. The Largo do Carmo is a popular little square with South American jacaranda trees, which bloom purple blossoms in June, and of course we don't see them now. So I was here 1 year after the Carnation Revolution. I didn't understand that history at the time. I was here as a young guy. But that's when the Salazar regime was finally overthrown. And this was probably the last bastion of that regime. This historic building was once a barracks, but now houses the Museum of the National Guard and presents the history of the Portuguese military. Anyhow, as I said before, I was here in Lisbon in July of 1975, 1 year after the coup which ushered in the new democratic government. And yes, that's me, a revolutionary wannabe, raising a clenched fist in front of this leftist mural. Those murals and graffiti were, to my memory, all over the city back then. I do recall instructing a fellow traveler to quickly shoot my picture when I raised my fist in front of the mural for a second, since I did not want to attract any attention. I hope you will indulge me as I reminisce over a few of the Kodachrome slides that I shot back then. One evening I attended a revista or review, I guess you would call it a variety show, in this theater in the Parque Mayer district. Though I didn't speak any Portuguese, the ticket was only $1, and I was curious to see what this cultural art form was like. When the curtain came up, I was shocked to see 3 naked women run onto the stage, and I found myself enjoying the show despite not speaking the language. And damned, but I got this photo. I had just come from Spain, which at the time was still a dictatorship under Franco, and I thought to myself, my God, this place is way less conservative than Spain. And in fact, now that the old authoritarian regime had fallen, the theater could make a statement in favor of free expression and against censorship. Doing some reading on the internet, I learned that at the time I was there, this was one of 4 theaters presenting the revistas, but it burned down in 1986. It was rebuilt, and today is the only one left that still serves up this art form. And while I'm at it, here are 2 more photos from that summer of 1975. The Rocio and Alfama. These are the remains from the earthquake of 1755 at the Carmo Church.
Es que hemos ido a una parada de tren, pero está cuando. Esa, medio euro.
And the famous San Justa elevator is up there that will take you down to the lower Baja area of the city. Well, I think it's a lot easier to walk down than to walk up. So I don't think I'm going to take this antique elevator. It certainly is Instagram city here, as it is almost everywhere I've been. You know, I feel like I'm a Rick Steves wannabe, just here's this and here's that. Well, I don't want to waste your time completely, so I'm trying to give you a little bit of information on what I'm looking at. All right, I'm walking down the steps. I mean, I'm not 90 years old, I can handle it.
Up there is the walkway to the Santa Justa elevator. And on the pedestal supporting the walkway, this purple lady appeared mysteriously one night. A clue to understanding the significance of this figure was given by the secretive artist. He named her Sophia and said that she loves Chiadu but can't stand crumbs. Thus she greets people entering the elevator holding a handheld Hoover vacuum cleaner. Welcome to Chiadu, but please don't litter. The Santa Justa elevator was inaugurated in 1902 with great pomp and circumstance, and in 2002 it was declared a national monument.
Here's the line to take that elevator up. Okay, it's been a long day. Back to my room on the top level of this building. Room number 10. Well, it's dinner time. I'm going to my default supermarket for a big dinner. So I've got a teriyaki with chicken and a smoothie with fruit, bananas or whatever. Wow, she fooled me. On this drizzly night, on the Rue Garrett, I have come to the Bertrand bookstore across the street, which says that it's the oldest continuous running bookstore in the world, established in 1732. Well, it's nice to see that printed material is not yet obsolete. Well, this is pretty, it goes on and on. here in the back is a little coffee shop. Hello. Has everything from the Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa to this young lady. And I'm back at the Opera House of São Carlos, and it's obviously closed. There's utterly no one here except this young man. Unfortunately, he's not the first person I've seen who falls asleep at the opera. So the Rue Garrett has some swanky stores, as well as some not so swanky people. Gypsy? There are about 60,000 or so gypsies, or ciganos as the Portuguese call them, in the country, and thus they make up about 0.5% of the population. Well, that's it for this Wednesday evening, and we'll pick up on my gypsying around in this city in the next video.